Welcome back for another episode of Life in Cyber. Today we are greeted by Justin Freeland, who is an owner of a game shop, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what he does on his day-to-day and how he balances his life and how he handles, dealing with a game shop while still having a full-time gig.
Hi, I guess that's me. Hi, I'm Justin. I am one of the three owners of Olympus Games, formerly Olympus Games and Comics, but since the pandemic, we kind of dropped the comics, so now it's just games. We are the largest Warhammer retailer in the tri-state area, I want to say. I think you'd have to go pretty far south of Colorado to actually find somebody who has more inventory than us, so that's kind of our claim to fame in the area. Is like, if you're looking for Warhammer, we got you covered. A little bit of board games, a little bit of everything else here, but mostly that. So, yeah, we're in downtown Cheyenne with our soon-to-be three other lovely competitors, all a block away from us. We really appreciate that. It's good times. But yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, there, Justin. And for everyone who is watching on YouTube today, Justin says he's too good looking for the camera, so he won't have one today. So we'll find something.
It's true. My dashing Fabio hair is just unruly today. So,
Josh, you have a buddy to go with. I mean, you guys could wax each other's heads. You would go with that.
Nice. I've really been looking to someone, just co-polishing.
At the 1,000 sub mark, I can't wait for it.
Yeah, we're going for those 1,000 subs, and we gotta.
Oh, is this the subathon now? That's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
Can we pair like a Justin face reveal with us going out to New York?
I think so. I think we're gonna have to do something like that. What do you say, Justin?
I mean, or they could just come down to Olympus and see me in person.
Right. Maybe have you as one of their D&D masters or something. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. We're always looking for D&D masters.
Right. So running a board game shop during a full-time gig seems a little crazy to me. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do on the day-to-day before you actually are a game shop owner?
Yeah. So day-to-day, I work at Dish Network. I am in the department that manages their security for their set-top box health and their encryption. Nothing too terribly exciting because, it's mostly older hardware that's basically being duct taped together and held together by hopes and dreams at this point. But yeah, so most of my day-to-day is just making sure that nothing topples over, God willing.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's IT, it's making sure nothing breaks.
And a game shop owner. So how the heck did you get into that role?
Yeah, so gosh, this must have been 10 years ago that I think Griffin Games opened. So for those of you not familiar, there is a store in Fort Collins called Griffin Games, and they eventually decided, hey, we're going to branch out to Cheyenne because we like losing money. So they came up here, and Kyle originally was the manager of that shop, and then I think like 2 or 3 years into that, he and some other people found some couch change and bought out Griffin Games up here and renamed it as Olympus Games and Comics. Originally, Kyle was the driving force behind it. Turns out, running a game shop day to day does not make money, so he had to get a real job. So yeah, none of us owners are actually like full-time employees. We're all like, we'll take a day here and there just to kind of lighten the load. But other than that, most of our stuff is done by our employees, who are absolutely fantastic.
So I have to say, Justin, like, I spent a lot of time in my early adult years, and by early I mean like from the age of like, let's say 21 to about 29, bouncing around all of the hobby shops in the region. And I used to do a lot of like competitive Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc. I ran events for places. Griffin Games was hands down one of my favorite stores in all of Colorado because it was just impressive at how they found a way to like take multiple niches, like, a cafe, a store, a gaming area, and like cram them into a facility in such a well done fashion. So hearing that like your store kind of was birthed out of that concept to me is so cool, because Griffin Games was one of my favorite places in Fort Collins. And I'm specifically talking about Colorado. I didn't really venture up towards Wyoming very often, but like hobby shops were my home away from home, man. And I was exactly like what you're saying. Like, I had a lot of folks say, Kenny, why don't you start a hobby shop? You'd be great at it. But like, Hobby shops don't make money, man.
No, don't. For the love of God. If you want to retire someday, don't. It's the worst thing you can ever do. I mean, that's not true. Like, we clearly make some kind of money because we're not laundering money. We're not that smart. But yeah, it is tough. Like, the margins are super thin. Everyone wants to, get everything super cheap. And then for whatever godforsaken reason, we have 3 other competitors like a block away from us just picking fights. It's tough.
On the margin conversation too, like the one thing that I've seen the most with those owners is like, how do you price out your product in a way that can compete with Amazon? And the answer is you don't.
You really don't. You can't. There are definitely like our diehard fans, mostly our Warhammer fans, who they will. I don't know how or why. Maybe they're just making poor financial response choices. Probably. Who are like, yeah, I'm gonna buy retail Warhammer because I like plastic crack. And thank God for them because we really need them. But then you have people who just come in like, oh, I can see this here, I can go buy it on Amazon, and that's fine. Like, yeah.
So what do you do in the shop to generate revenue? Is there anything that you can do outside of just like the low margin product that you sell at retail price, for example?
I mean, there's a ton of events we run, which help drive people into the store. And usually once you have them in the store, they'll buy something. But events are like, I mean, that's zero cost. So that's basically a free income source for us, minus, what we take out for prize support if we do any kind of prizes, or we have something from like Warhammer or some other vendor who actually puts in the prize support, which is not terribly often, but it does happen. So there are a bunch of different ways you can generate revenue if you're just relying on sales alone. Yeah, it's rough, but yeah, it's really just engaging with your customers, getting them to come back, and that's really the biggest thing. And especially, it's really hard in downtown China because there's just so little parking, and everything's everyone wants to drive around. Nobody wants to like park and walk three blocks downtown. So yeah, it's just hard to get people to come downtown. And even to this day, I still have people come down to the shop and like, wow, you guys have really changed. What happened to the purple walls? I'm like, that was a decade ago, my dude.
Right. So what do you think actually draws people to the shop specifically, as opposed to, buying board games, role-playing supplies, for instance?
Yeah, so that was a big question I had when I bought into the shop. Is like, why do people come here? And it really is the Cheers effect. Like, people walk through the door like, Norm! I was like, it's weird how much of a home away from home a game shop is for a good chunk of people. I still can't really wrap my head around it because I just don't understand that feeling. But yeah, there are just some people like, this is where they go to blow off steam or whatever.
Well, I do understand that feeling because I used to be one of those. And for me, it was like that social interaction concept, right? It's being able to go somewhere where you're recognized and you feel like you belong, right?
Sure.
Because like in a lot of places and in a lot of homes, like let's say you might live with your parents and they don't necessarily care or approve of what your hobbies or whatever you're doing. They're like, you're wasting money on those games or whatever. Like, quit playing video games, go do something productive with your life. And it's like, I've got a job, calm down. But at the same point, and in other cases, or like in my case, it's because I live alone and it's nice to have that human interaction, right? So there's I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but I would say it's that one place where people feel like they can kind of be themselves and not be judged for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely saw that during like the pandemic, when we were, not really having a play space available. We still have people coming to the store to buy stuff, but people not having like a play space, that really hurt a lot of our customers, like just not having that regular community there available for them. Unfortunately, we really bounced back from that, but for a couple of years there, I was like, man, this is really tough. This is tough on us. This is tough on our customers. So yeah, it's an interesting field to get into, but it's definitely not for everyone.
Well, and now you mentioned the pandemic a couple times. How has your recovery from the pandemic been going? Like, do you see the same kind of foot traffic that you did pre-pandemic at this point, or is it still kind of like slowly trickling in?
That's really funny. So basically during the pandemic, we cut off all comics because the the one thing that finally killed comics wasn't people not buying comics, it was the price of lumber. Just making paper for comics got wildly expensive, so they really cut back. They really pushed for digital, so we just kind of cut them out altogether. And our largest stock supply is shipped over from England, and even to this day, we're still not getting regular shipments from Games Workshop. Like, new releases come out just fine, but if there's like, hey, there's this paint I want, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll put in an order for it, we might see it in 6 to 8 months. Yeah.
Man, it's crazy seeing how the industry has shifted over, due to COVID.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because Games Workshop is just like, since the pandemic, there's a ton of people that got into the game during the pandemic, and they only have like 2 factories, I think, out of England, and they're looking at splitting up a third. But those 2 factories are just constantly churning out new product to keep up just with the demand they've gained over since the pandemic, and a lot of their back supply is just still really, really behind.
How are your events doing afterwards? Are you back to like decent numbers on that?
Yeah, we do really well. I would say that's the one thing we do really well outside of like larger conventions like Bug Eater or Adepticon, stuff like that, is we get turnout for conventions, which still stuns me that we pull from probably like 4 other states. We've had people come from Montana, from Texas, especially during like upcoming Cheyenne Gaming Convention. We'll host a grand tournament, which is probably 50 to 60 tables. So yeah, there is an association we have with the community that I'm really thankful for, that people just really like the events we run.
That's really cool. What do you think is the most challenging aspect of owning such a niche business, right? Because it's not a business like a normal, I'm sorry to say, it's not a normal business. It's a niche, right? You have a very good following. So what's the most challenging aspect you have with that?
Oh, by far and away, the hardest aspect is having 2 other owners. Like, I adore Kyle and CJ, but we all have very different visions and fiscal views of what we should do with the shop. And like, originally the ownership split was 33% amongst all the people who were in it. When I bought into it, I only bought a 10% stake of the guy who was getting out, and Kyle and CJ split the other 2%. So I'm a very small owner. So I put in my input, and I'm like, look, I cannot overrule anybody. Like, this little corner of the shop over here, this 10 by 10 square foot, that's mine. I control that. But beyond that, like, having a cohesive vision is really hard. And then you double that by, we all have day jobs, which are very stressful. It's
interesting that you say it that way. It's the owners per se. And do you think it would be successful with a single owner, or do you think it's not a place that could have a single owner?
It definitely can. It definitely could have a single owner. And really it should have, I don't necessarily want to say a single owner, but it needs to have somebody who has a day-to-day vision and drive for it. Because I think one of our employees' biggest frustrations is we all have different priorities, and we all tell our employees different things.
Yeah, they have 3 bosses.
They do, right? Like, well, CJ told me to do this. I'm like, well, but I need this done. And it's like, okay, well, So yeah, not everyone is rowing in this. We are, and we're not all rowing in the same boat. Right. At least not the same direction anyway.
But I own one share of Olympus. I should have my say. I'm just kidding.
That's right. I have my 5% of this shop. I'm taking my pound of flesh and going home.
That's awesome. Well, that's interesting because as a lot of times we like to talk about work-life balance when it comes to life in cyber. And we were kind of wondering, like, having 2 jobs, a family, everything you've got going on in life, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance?
I don't. I do not. An attempt was made, and it went out the window. Especially when you have like teenage kids, and like, so Adeline's been doing my middle child, Adeline. She's been doing choir. So I have to take her to school at 7:30 on like Tuesdays and Thursdays, and now she just started volleyball, so I have to pick her up at 5 o'clock after school, Monday through Friday. So I'm like, I'll find time for me. How about Sunday from 2 to 3?
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
it is tough. I used to run the shop just like 1 day a week, but now I'm up to 2 days a week, which I really enjoy. Like, I'm enjoying the extra time at the shop, but I do find it's harder, like, on my kids because I only have my kids every other week. So on the weeks I have my kids, like, I feel bad that I'm not there at the house taking care of them. And then the weeks I don't have my kids, I hang out with my girlfriend a lot, and she's like, "Well, we're just always at the shop." I'm like, "Yeah, it's
I'm a shop
a
owner.
lot. I warned you this could be a thing." But she's taking it really in stride, so I'm very thankful for her. She's pretty wonderful. Yeah, she is really the thing that keeps me sane most days, because balance, especially when I'm on call, like during this week, it's not going to happen. Which is actually really funny because my girlfriend is also on call this week, so we don't get sleep really. Like, somebody's phone is buzzing in the middle of the night, and like, okay, well, it's me or you, fine.
Right.
The funny part about this is that this is the exact story that you hear from almost every small business owner, right? It's almost always like 100% of your time is dedicated to work in some way. It's just you're juggling that and a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and it's always something. Like, when I'm at the shop, I'm at least just doing stuff at the shop. But there's always like, I got to go make like a Sam's Club run. I got to go restock water and all this other stuff. Or we have like, a boatload of inventory coming in that has to be stickered and inventoried and made sure nothing's damaged. And then if it's damaged, ship it back. And it's surprising to me how easy some vendors are to deal with, and just how much of a pain in the butt other vendors are. It is not a uniform experience by any means, even though it's just literally cardboard.
So what about those times where you kind of have to prioritize your well-being over all these work demands? Like, have you had moments where that's happened, and what do you do in those moments?
Not nothing critical like that. Like, I've never had to say, like, I just can't come in today, unless I'm sick. But we run such a lean crew that I really try to give our employees the preference of their time off over mine. Most of the time it's pretty mellow at the shop, so it's, if I just need a night off, I can just go there, play a game of Magic or a board game or something, and just kind of like mellow out. I don't really have to be like on per se, like I do at my day job.
So now that you've actually owned a game shop and it was one of your favorite hobbies before, how is gaming to you now? Is it as big of a hobby as it was before, or has it lost some interest?
I am much more critical about board games than I was before. Like, if I just don't enjoy a board game, like, this is a bad game, and the designer should feel bad, and I wasted half an hour of my life, and I want that time back. But I mean, there's some stuff that's definitely soured me. But for the most part, like, it's less about the game and more about the community that I'm actually enjoying, which is weird because I'm like, I don't know if I would ever like these people, but some of them are actually really kind of cool. I've met some really cool people through the shop.
What's the worst game you've ever played?
Monopoly. Let's be honest here. It's Monopoly. Anyone who owns Monopoly just needs to be sent to the gulag.
Right.
Capitalism for fun? What?
No. Capitalism was never fun.
You've talked a lot about social aspects of the shop and community, and I think that's kind of interesting to hear from the outside, is saying that most of us think of a small business as profit in, profit out, and it seems that the game shop is so much more than that. So how do you think escapism plays a role in attracting people to your shop? You've talked a little bit about this already.
Yeah, I don't think people really go there for escapism at first. I think they just kind of go into a store thinking like, oh, I'm just going to buy this. And then, either CJ or Kyle, they are much better salesmen than I am for this. They'll kind of like, you could play this really cool game called Warhammer. First hit's free. Just kind of like, give them these little enticing ideas to, like, just buy this little starter army, come on back, play a game on Thursday or something. We'll have a good time. And that's, I think, once people realize, oh, this is somewhere I could kind of hang out, not just come down and, buy my paints or my plastic and and go home. Like I could actually come down here and have fun.
Sounds like it's so much more than just a shop.
For a lot of people, it really is. I mean, I don't know that you could really have a board game shop without having a play space. Like you really need something that just draws in the community where people want to be there. And I think it's more fun. Like I've been in game shops that are just game shops, and I'm like, this is kind of sad.
I'm curious. In recent years, we've had different shows and movies come out where, there's references to other games. Obviously, Stranger Things had D&D, and obviously, we have Warhammer coming out soon. And I think there was a Magic the Gathering show that was once in the works. I don't know where it's at now, but how does that affect business? Have you seen like a big influx from, I guess, the non-everyday or usual customers?
That's yes and no. Like when Critical Role was really big, I want to say before the end times, like 3 or 4 years ago, we saw a really big bump in them for D&D product. But really, I would say where we get like most of our driving stuff from is when products collaborate. Like when Magic the Gathering does a crossover with Warhammer, that suddenly is getting our Warhammer players like, well, Magic's stupid, but I'll play it. So that's really the biggest thing. I don't think we necessarily see a whole lot of bump from just like the entertainment industry. We used to a bit more when a long time ago when it was still Griffin. They actually did some movie nights. Like they would buy out a theater and they would sell tickets to it, and that was always really fun. But never profitable, but great advertisement.
I miss those nights.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun.
Few of those.
One of the things that I find interesting, Justin, you're the first person we've spoken to from tech, where tech isn't like the main thing in your brain, like on your mind, like the forefront of your attention all the time. Like, how does the day job, so to speak, to like impact your, I want to say like stress levels, or how much energy do you put into that compared to the shop?
I mean, it depends. Like I would say, definitely my day job has most of my attention. But there have been definitely times at the shop where it's like, oh, cool, we're moving to a new POS and moving an entire database. Okay, hang on. Because originally when I joined on, we were on some Microsoft Salesforce POS. I forget what it's called. And then we decided, hey, we're going to move over to Square, and that migration was miserable. It was a lot of editing an Excel file to figure out like 10 years of inventory that may or may not exist and have to upload it. So that was like a really stressful week. But yeah, I mean, my day job, it's okay. It's pretty mellow. I enjoy it, but I used to be really more heavy into tech, and now I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather just go for a hike or something. Like I just want to be outdoors. I'm kind of done with if I could get out of the IT field, I think I would entirely.
It's kind of funny. We hear that from a lot of people. Like we like to say burnout is real.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We say that a lot. So can you share any personal experiences or anything that helped you prioritize maybe your well-being over the work?
Getting divorced.
I shouldn't laugh, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah. That kind of showed me like, oh, hey, because when I was first separated and divorced, I spent a lot of time at the shop. Just I'd go from work on the weeks I didn't have my kids. I would go from the work to the shop and just invest hours into the shop. Either cleaning or fixing all of our inventory issues or anything I could do. And it's like, holy crap, I haven't slept in like a day and a half. So yeah. Like at a certain point, I kind of realized like I am not in a healthy place, and that was really hard. That took a good bit of therapy. I recommend therapy to everyone. Just go and talk to someone, and because having all those voices in your head, not great. You really need to let those voices out. I just kind of take a step back from what you're doing every now and then. Go outside, touch grass, as Lupo likes to say, And just kind of think about who do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and what do you want to prioritize? And right now my priority is my kids and my relationship with my girlfriend, and the shop is a distant third. And the day job just kind of chugs along.
Well, I love that you actually mentioned that, because like our January book that we just finished up was the Algebra of Happiness, and it's the same message he even put in there. So I love just hearing this repeat message from everybody. It's like, no, we're not just making this stuff up. We're all feeling this.
Yeah.
It's almost like you all learn from experience and you come to the same conclusions.
No. When I was 18, I knew everything. So don't worry.
It's true. I could conquer the world.
I knew you back then, and you were right. You did know everything back then. So Justin, a lot of the gaming industry we know is super passion driven, right? It's a lot of people just doing it because they love it. How do you make sure that your team members, like your employees at the shop, maintain like a healthy balance? Like you mentioned that you prioritize their time off over yours, but how do you encourage them to take care of themselves?
Oh, they absolutely do not. They are weirdly dedicated to the shop, and I appreciate them, but they're like, yeah, if I was, not at work, I would just be here. I'm like, you can do other things with your life, right? So yeah, our employees, like, we don't pay great, so I'm super thankful that they are happy, with the environment and what we can give them. And we definitely do try to prioritize their time when they need it. But yeah, they are just people who want to work for a game shop have a dedication that I think rivals sysadmins with uptime.
Thanks for putting that in a way that I can understand.
No, that's what I'm here for.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, as much as I would say I would love to own a game shop, you've kind of scared me a little bit away from it. But it sounds like there's some creativity there, and a lot of people who enjoy it, and it's almost like a community-driven system.
It really is, and I would say that Kyle is by far and away the best champion for Olympus that we have. I don't think the shop would be nearly as successful, or even as successful if it wasn't for him. It is his baby, and he has seen it through blood, sweat, and tears, and more personal investment than I could personally fathom. CJ and I owe a lot to him, and we're very thankful. The other CJ and Kyle they're awesome, and I wholeheartedly adore them as co-owners, but at the same time, I will strangle one of them.
At any given time.
Like Kyle, probably not. He could probably body slam me. Honestly, he's.
Yep, Kyle could take you.
Yeah, Kyle could take me. Like I could take him out to dinner, but that's about it.
So Justin, I'm going to shift topics here for a second. My experience in gaming shops, as much as I spent a lot of time in them, I found that they weren't always friendly to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's really difficult to be a woman going into a gaming shop, for example, especially a younger woman, right? So what have you and your shop done to kind of make sure that your shop remains like inclusive and welcoming to all of those folks?
That's actually hilarious, because we were just talking about this in a work discussion at Dish about women coming into game stores, and I was having my bit like, it's hard. I would say Kyle, CJ, and I all have the same vision. What their level of tolerance is when I'm not around, I don't know, but I have zero tolerance for it. Like I will crack that down. I will kick you out of my shop. Like this is a place for people to feel welcome. And my girlfriend's daughter is working there now. My own oldest daughter has thought about working there, and to be fair, yeah, like I definitely have reservations. There are some customers that come in like, no, just no. But it's not until somebody says something really stupid that you have to intervene. But yeah, we work really hard to keep the space welcoming and inviting, because that's what we want. We want people to come in here, be comfortable, regardless of how they identify or who they are or anything else about them. Like this is a place for you just to play a game, and all their bullshit's left at the door.
Are there any like proactive strategies you take to like helping with that, or is it all reactionary, like listening for someone to be a jerk and then you boot him? But do you do something like there's one wall dedicated with just like, here's our policy about being friendly, you know?
I would say we're probably 90% reactive because we don't, being that we're in a fairly conservative state, we don't really want to be super pushy with our views. And I'm definitely like the most liberal leaning member of our posse. But we definitely have like a code of conduct, and we have that plastered all over the place, and we encourage people to review that, and definitely before games, we go over that policy, like, hey, if you have problems, if you have questions, please let us know. We are here for you guys. But yeah, it's when we have to be reactionary that we really crack down.
Yeah, and I'll honestly say, like, as a former person supporting many stores across all of Colorado, a code of conduct was also a rarity. And talking about it and reiterating it before an event was also a rarity. So you're already leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of what I witnessed personally. So that's great.
Oh, it's great to hear. Yeah, I don't attend nearly as many events as like CJ and Kyle do, so I don't know what all is out there. But I do constantly hear that this is a lot of people's favorite store. So that always makes me happy.
That's awesome.
All right. Hard question. What is your favorite board game?
That's...
I knew I would stump him with that one. He's got to pick one.
One? I feel like if I don't say Everdell, then Cherry's really going to hurt me. Because we play that a lot, and she constantly kicks my ass. I would say probably Everdell at the moment is our favorite. I have one coming out on Tuesday that we're really looking forward to, but it's a new release, so we don't know quite where it's going to fit yet.
Great. Well, that's really cool. So before we finish this up for today, is there anything you want to share about your shop that our listeners may want to hear?
Yeah, please come and visit us. Like, even if you're from out of town, we absolutely love having new people in. If you're into board games, come by on a Tuesday. If you like D&D, come by on a Wednesday. If you like Warhammer and miniatures, come by on a Thursday. If you like Magic, come by on a Friday. But we have events going on all the time. Most of our stuff is on the weekends, but there's always someone that will play a game or sit down and do something. Like, just swing by, check us out. We'd love to have anyone who wants to stop by.
And for a reminder for everybody, that's Olympus Games in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's actually a pretty cool place. I've been there a few times when I can get out there, but they do a little bit of everything. I've always enjoyed it, so I highly recommend.
I usually bump into you guys at conventions because I'm not often in Wyoming, but
no one else is, so it's fun.
Well, you came up for a gaming conference. That was fun. Yeah, I think we played Ticket to Ride or something.
Right. We did. Isn't that your favorite board game, John?
It's one of my favorite games I don't have to explain to anybody. Like, Justin buys these games that I have to spend 3 hours learning the rules. I like a game where I could just open it up, play it, and teach somebody as they play. But
that's harsh but fair.
It is very fair.
I like games with a lot of depth. So I've been getting Shannon and his wife all of the villainous packs that come out for Disney. Because they like the concept of seeing how the villains turn into a game, but at the same point, some of them are really challenging to play well, and so I have a lot of fun with it. They hate me for it. Whatever, it's great.
Well, anytime we can get someone into gaming, right?
Right.
Well, we always like to finish these off with our quick fire questions, and we always leave those up to Josh. He's the best at saying them, so go for it.
Put me on the spot, huh?
No pressure. No pressure.
All right, here we go. All right, quick fire. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke, but only out of a glass bottle, like the Mexican Coke.
Interesting. That's got the real sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones?
That's not a comparison. You always go with your Samwise. Potatoes.
Boil and mash them, stick them in a stew.
Mac or PC?
PC.
Favorite streaming service?
Disney Plus. I just want to watch Star Wars.
Nice. And then favorite hobby or vacation spot?
My favorite hobby is photography. That's kind of like my downtime, just kind of chilling then.
Nice.
Awesome.
You know, the best part is we were going to also ask Star Wars or Star Trek, but I think we got there anyway.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
We got
You're
there.
welcome.
Thank you. All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Life in Cyber. Thank you guys for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. See you next time.